Hi, welcome back to my video. Happy holidays. And if you celebrate Christmas like me, then Merry Christmas to you. I received two questions from my viewers, and I'm going to work on the first one in this video. And that has to do with overlapping spaces between the two numbers. I really appreciated this question because I remember when I was first learning this, I almost gave up because of this question, because it was super confusing to me, and I didn't really have a tutorial to guide me. Um, so it really reminded me of that time, and I felt bad that I actually forgot to put this in one of my tutorials. So again, I really appreciate it, and so here it is. So let's dive right into it. This is part of the puzzle number 15, but it can be everywhere. So overlapping spaces, meaning let's look at the 6 here, right? So the overlapping spaces between this and the 8, and overlapping spaces between 6, right? Two sixes. So if I look at the 6 and the 8, these two spaces are shared by a 6 and the 8, overlapping, right? And if I look at this, these two sixes here, right? I could tell that these two spaces are overlapping, right? Now looking at the 6 here, we just need one more black space. We could have only one more black space in one of the four spaces. So how do you know whether that one black space will go into the space shared by 6 and the 8, or the space shared by the two sixes? How can you tell, right? Um, Meaning, can I approach it like this? Okay, since one of them is a black space, that means if I'm looking at the 6, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and one of them is a 6, does that mean I found the rest? I completed this, right? Or does that mean, if I look at the 8, right, since one of them will be a black space, does that mean the rest will become all black like that, right? Which one is correct? So yeah, this is again kind of confusing, but let's look at the first case. Let's look at the 8. Okay, by looking at the 8, right, um, we know that to have 8 meaning, here, look at it. Having 8 means, of course, we have 8 black spaces, but then you can look at it this way. That means you could have only one gray space, right? If you have 8, you can have only one gray space. You cannot have more than one, right? If you have two gray spaces, then you're looking at a 7, right? So if one of them could be a black space, that means the other one will be a gray space, right? If none of these are black spaces, right, meaning the black space will be like one of the two here, then these two will be gray, right? Can you have two gray spaces for the 8? You can't, right? So that means the one of them must be a black space, right? Just giving you a response, right? You just cannot have this, right? So in this case, yes, the black space will be here. This one of the two. Okay, so by looking at the 6 here, one of them is a black space. So I found 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these two will become gray. Okay, now let's look at the two overlapping spaces here that are shown by the two sixes, right? Could one of them be a black space? Let me rephrase that. Uh, does one of the space must be a black space? Okay, let's look at it like that. Okay, does one of the space must be a black space? Okay, now looking at the 6, okay, does it have to be a black space? Uh, Actually, no, because this could be a black space, right? This could, right? Or it could be up there too, right? It doesn't really matter. Sorry, wrong button. Doesn't matter what this is. I could complete the 6 in different way. Okay, so that is not a must. Okay, I hope I don't confuse this, but I don't. When you look at the 6, that means you will have 3 gray spaces, right? Uh, let's see. Yeah, okay, there's a 6 here. Right? That means you're going to have 3 gray spaces, right? You cannot have more than 3, right? Obvious. So let's look at that. So suppose one of the black space will be here, which makes these 2 gray spaces, right? Um, like that, right? So is that a must that both have to be gray spaces like that? Yeah? No, not really. It's not a must, right? Meaning, let's say only one of them is a gray space, right? Then I could actually have one here, one there, right? That means I have 3 gray spaces, right? Right? I could have 2 here, but then I could have another one there, or one of them there, right? So it doesn't really matter whether these 2 have to be gray or only one of them, right, becomes a gray, because then I could have gray in the other 2 spots, right, making 3 gray spaces, right? So it's not a must. It doesn't really matter what goes in here. That one black space, whether they are in these 2 areas or not, it doesn't make any difference. I could still complete it, right, in a different way, right? Meaning that's not the absolute must. Looking at the 8, it is a must that I have to have a black space in here, right? Again, because I could only have one gray space, right? And that's why when we're looking at the overlapping areas, right? I know I could put one more, but should I do these 2 or do I do 6 and the 8? Right? In this case, that's what you have to look for. Is it a must that black space be in one of the 2? Okay, so that means, yeah, we're gonna have a black space in here, right? And we go on like that, right? And since one of them is a black space, that will complete the 6, right? And then we move on. Um, let's see if I could find another place where I could apply the same logic. Um, yeah, I think I saw one up here somewhere. Um, yeah, okay, let's do this here. Okay, let's look at the 4 here. Okay, we just need to find one more black space, right? And I could actually compare it to 3 different numbers here. So I'm gonna compare the 4 and the 6, 4 and the 4, 4 and the 5. So let's look at the 2 4s here, right? That means I'm looking at that area and this area, right? And I could have only one more black space, right? So the 2 spaces that are shared by the 2 4s, right? I could have only one black space, and let's look at the 4 here. We have 2 black spaces, we just have to find 2 more. So 2 of the 3 will be a black, will become black spaces, right? And now, does one of them have to be a black space, right? Is it a must that it has to be a black space in there? Yes, because we only have 3 spaces to work on, and I need to find 2 more. So if this is a black space, right, and this must become a black space to complete the 4, meaning I cannot have a black space that's somewhere else. right? And turn these two into gray, then it will not complete the 4, right? I could only have one more. So that means it is absolute must that one of them has to be a black space for the 4. Okay, so in this case, that's what happens, right? Now let's look at the 4 and the 6, right? One of them, right, is a black space, and let's look at the 6, right? Is it a must that that one black space has to be in here? This is the shared spaces, but a shared space. Yeah, these 4 spaces are overlapping between the 4 and the 6, right? So is it a must that one of the black space must be in this area? Is it a must? And it actually is, because if you look at the 6, right, um, that means I c- that means I could have, for the 6, that means I could have 3 gray spaces, right? And I cannot have more than 3 gray spaces, right, for the 6. Um, so if one of the black spaces is not here, let's say over there, then these 4 will turn into gray spaces, right? I cannot have 4 gray spaces. That means I'm gonna have room for 5 black spaces only, not 6. Okay, so that's not possible, right? So that means the most number of gray spaces I could have is 3, right? Something like that, right? Oops, something like that, right? So that means if I could have 3 gray spaces at the most, that means one of them has to be a black space, right? So it's a must, right? That one of the black spaces will be in one of the 4 spaces here. Okay, so 1 is in here, so the remaining 5 will turn into black spaces, and because we found 1 in this area, that completes the 4, right? And then we go on. And then lastly, let's take a look at the 4 and the 5. In this case, we have 3 spaces that are overlapping, right? If you look at the 4 and the 5, these 3 spaces are overlapping, right? Um, and one of them can be a black space, but there's one of them must be a black space, or can they be all gray, right? Um, so let's look at it this way. So can one of them, can all of them be gray spaces? Let's assume that they're all gray. Yeah, you still have enough space up here to make a 5, right? And and does one of them have to be a black space? No, it doesn't, right? I mean, it can be, and you could have like a 5 like that, right? But then if none of them are black spaces, as we've seen before, then I could have 5 spaces up there, right? So it's not a must. It could be, but it's not a must. So in this case, you cannot use this overlapping space. You cannot use it to apply that one more black space needed to complete the 4. Okay, so when you're working with overlapping spaces, you have to see if it's an absolute must, okay? And if it gives you like other options, then you cannot use those spaces. Um, I'm I try my best to really explain this without um, confusing you. I hope I didn't. But if I did, please leave a comment below. Um, Again, this was the hardest concept for me to comprehend in the beginning. So it's even confusing for me to try to explain it um, so that you can understand. But I hope this was helpful. If it didn't, again, please questions, comments, let me know, please. And yeah, in my next video, I'm going to do the second question.